Hi guys, this is Concha. Welcome back to While We Were Awake podcast, the place where spirit, logic, and our 3D realities come together to create something beautiful. And today is a special episode for me. It is Mother's Day. So, today I have my personal mom, my one and only mother, on the show with me. And we are calling this episode, drum roll, Dear Mama. So today we are going to discuss mother and daughter trauma bonds, how it kind of creates where we're at today as women, and let's kind of see the thoughts of the generations before us. So, with none further ado, how you doing, Mom?
I am doing awesome. The light of my life.
You look beautiful.
Thank you.
So,
you look like me.
Or do you look like me? What came first, the chicken or the egg?
The egg, the chicken.
So cheers to you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. Clink,
Thank
clink,
you so much.
Clink, clink.
Yeah.
All right. So, getting off into this episode, I would like to ask, what is the biggest responsibility of motherhood?
I would say that would be teaching. We are the first teachers of society. When we have our children, there's a reason why they put that child on your chest. That is so the child can bond. So once that bond, whatever you teach or don't teach that child, that's going to set out who that child is.
Right.
Not unless down that road through their journey, someone else steps in and say, hey, I'm going to mentor you. You shouldn't do it like that. And then they can steer off that course. But I would definitely say that we're teachers.
Right. So, within your generation of mothers, and let's say we're looking at the way a lot of women are today in culture and just everyday mentality, how we relate to each other, how we relate to men, how we relate to love, even how we relate to sex. Where do you feel that your generation let us down at?
Well, I think that your generation, they know what they want. They want independence. If that's what they want to be married. They want to have children without a man. I mean, whatever they want is out here. But I'm called a baby boomer. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we were right at that point where we were still being taught that you get married and have children. They didn't really teach us educate yourself. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, we were kind of like, we don't want to do that. We want some independence, but we couldn't really break free of that. And so then we thought that we could have a husband and a husband would support us in that independence, understanding that if I'm doing well, you're doing well. Right. The family is doing well as a whole. So, and in that process, and because I'm a 60s baby, so coming out, of the 50s into the 60s and into the 70s, our African American culture was just getting the right to vote.
Right. Right.
And, and all of the systemic racism and segregation and all that kind of stuff, we really didn't know. And we had parents that was not educated themselves.
Right.
They just had children. The man worked hard to try to feed all the kids. And, and the mother was just there with the kids. And she had a lot of trauma.
Right. Okay, that's what I was going to ask you to get back to.
She had a lot of trauma. My mom she only had like a 6th grade education.
Right.
So she never taught me things that were important. I come from a really abusive background,
right?
Physically, sexually, racially, all of that. You can see my skin tone. I was born in a black family, and I'm the only one with a white father, so I suffered a lot for that. And during my life, I was very upset about it, and then I realized in my 30s that they just didn't know any better.
Right.
It wasn't taught any better. And so you can't hold those grudges with you all your life. And it hurts.
I think a lot of that has to do with getting that sense of satisfaction or validation about your perception of what was done to you. So when did you start getting that closure of what was done to you, of things that happened to you, for you to even be able to come to that space of not holding grudges?
Well, it's sad for me to say this. I'll be 59. Not that I'll be 59 this month. That's a good thing. But I just came to that conclusion when I was like 50 years old. And that was because all the mistakes I made and all the things I've done that I should not have done, and all the things that I didn't do that I should have done, I had to learn them on my own. So I was behind the learning curve because I didn't have a mother saying to me, go get educated, love yourself, because they didn't show love to me. So how can she say those things to me?
Right.
So I was in this relationship before I got married, my husband, and after that was over, I was single for almost 8 years. And and prior all those relationships, because you don't get in a relationship to think it's going to end.
Right.
You get in a relationship because you saw something in this person, and I would say the wrong things. You probably saw more red flags than anything else, but because of those traumas, you want somebody to love you. You wanted somebody to fill that hole in you. I never knew my father, and I think my failed relationships up to me, into my 50s, my failed relationships, I come to the conclusion on my own that I was trying to fill a void where my father was never there.
Really?
Yeah. And yes. And
so
in that 8-year sabbatical.
I was trying to fill the void that hit my daddy in the face.
Well, me too. But we ain't gonna do that because we good people.
So.
We're good peoples. But we have to be honest with ourselves too. So in that 8-year sabbatical after the last relationship, I cried a lot. And another conclusion I came to, that I was the common denominator.
Right.
I mean, I was a good partner. I didn't cheat. I cooked, I cleaned, I had good jobs, I paid bills, I even helped raise their children and all of that. But I realized that that's why they were there. They saw that I had trauma, even though they didn't know that's what it was. They probably used a word like, "Oh, she's stupid. She a fool. She do anything." Yeah. But it was about my trauma, and I can say, and I couldn't blame. I was the common denominator. I wasn't a bad person. Like I said, I didn't cheat or none of that. But I chose the same kind of partner.
Over and over.
Somebody that I needed to care for, that I needed to coddle, because I didn't get that coming up in my life. You know what I mean? I didn't have my dad. Everybody knew their dad except me. and I always felt less than for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always seeking something to change that in me.
Right.
And then give me a second. Go ahead and say something. Just thinking about this trauma, how I laid it on you. It's kind of getting to me.
Yeah.
Because I look at my beautiful daughter, and I know early in your life, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Mom. I wish I was there so I could hug you. It's okay.
Huh?
It's okay. But you know what? Others need this. They need that vulnerability. They need to see that it's okay and it's real, and to be able to mend things are possible. Because
we're not taught in the African American community. You got trauma, go talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We got our ass beat.
Right.
When we act out, because they thought, oh, you just a badass kid or something. Mm-hmm. No, we
absorbing so much.
Yeah, the abuse. I think I peed in the bed till I was almost 10.
Wow.
But I got whoopings and stuff because my mom was like, oh, you nasty. But it was the trauma.
Right.
From the sexual abuse and the physical and the mental abuse.
Right.
And we're not taught we wasn't taught, because our parents had so much trauma, we wasn't taught to look for those signs in our children.
Mm-hmm.
There were signs in you that you had, but I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't recognize it, and I know there was times where you probably think Mom was so selfish, but I didn't recognize that either.
You know what? As children, it doesn't come off as Mom's selfish. It comes off as I'm alone. It comes off as abandonment. It comes off as I'm not significant. I'm not important.
And I didn't have that balance. Because you remember I worked, because it was me and
now,
you.
That's one thing you always did. You always worked.
I went to school.
Yeah.
Got educated. Because in my mind, I was saying that, I got to better my life so I can better my daughter's life, so we can, go do something else and, go travel somewhere and do all these wonderful things, But in that process, I didn't understand that it came off as abandonment. Because the things I did, it wasn't just for me, it was for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't always good at it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
one of the things that stuck out for me as a kid, I can remember that I believe you was at work. And I remember I used to stay with Granny a lot. Mm-hmm. She would pick me up from school. And we had a 3rd grade graduation. And no one was there for my graduation. Everyone else's family was there for their graduation. No one was there for my graduation. And even after the graduation, Granny ass was late. So I was standing out there waiting on her to come get me like 20 minutes after the whole parking lot cleared out. And that always stood out for me. Like, it was the craziest thing.
And it makes me, even though I was working, because, your dad wasn't with us, that makes me feel, that makes, I don't know. I mean, it's the past, and you have moved past it, but you saying those things to me, it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel sad.
Yeah. I mean,
I think about things, and this, and I think that's where our problems lie too.
Mm-hmm.
We have to move from the past.
Right.
I know every now and then me and you will talk about something, but generally we don't. We kind of move forward.
Yeah.
And I always wanted, that's why I'm going to say this so your listeners, I remember as a teenager, I used to say, but Connie, it's the principle of it. And you used to say, the principle, Mama, that's all you need.
Stop using that word.
Yeah. Now, what do you say?
It's the principle. I'll be like, it's the principle of the shit.
See, and and it makes me feel proud that from all of that, that my daughter, whenever she had any issue, she called me. So I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, and I'm an Indian chief.
You are definitely my best friend. Definitely. Like, people ask me, they say, who's your best friend, my mama? And tell your audience why I always took care of you. Well, what did I always say? Because I never wanted you to be under some nigga's thumb. Oops. Some man's thumb. Bleep that out and edit it, please. You always said, have your own.
Have your
own. You always.
I don't care if you're married to a rich husband. You have your own.
You always said have your own.
Women should always have their own, especially if they have children.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, we have had a long journey.
Yeah.
Very long journey. But I'm proud of where we are today. And
I am too.
And I really felt compelled to do this episode because even in my day-to-day, I listen to so many women so heartbroken about the relationship with their mother. And they talk about like how their mothers cannot admit to different things to help them heal or just to validate that they wasn't crazy at the time. Because if something's happening to you as a child and your mother is saying, no it didn't, or turning her head, that validation from you is going to mean the world to me, that you even just acknowledge that I am a being and something happened to me.
Well, I believe that that's from a couple of things. One is they never learned how to do that themselves from their own moms. And two, it's guilt.
Yeah.
It's not being able to face your guilt. But me, ironically, I endured so much abuse from my biological mother. And ironically, I had to be the one to make the decision to disconnect her life at the end.
Right. Yeah, they called you to do everything. Yeah.
Yeah. And I never asked her, even when she was living, I never asked her, why did you do those things to me?
Mm.
Because she couldn't answer that, and I knew she couldn't. And I knew that she would deny it. That's the guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And why would I put myself through that trauma? But I had to understand.
But do you really view it as putting yourself through that trauma if you were enduring it anyway?
Well, but it's different when you're a grown woman in your own life. Your mother's an older woman now, and you want to sit down and say, can you just explain to me why you treated me so bad?
Mm-hmm.
I was afraid of her response.
Mm.
So I made the choice not to ask because I was okay with it. You have to make up your mind that you okay with it. Mm-hmm. Now, for those young ladies that says, you were talking about their mom, I'm sorry, ladies, but you can't stay there trying to get it. You have to try to get it somewhere else.
So can you explain that a little bit more by getting it somewhere else?
So not only was my mom abusive, but I came from one of those St. Louis street families, like serious hardcore drug user, alcoholics, all that kind of stuff. And I was given away at one point as a baby, and the person I was given away to, she had a big family, and I didn't even know I had sisters and brothers and all that. And I got love and understanding, discipline, sweetness. Oh my God.
You got care.
I think that, and so I ended up going back to my biological mother. And I think that because I experienced real love, affection, things like that, I could tell the difference.
It gave you contrast. Yeah.
It gave me contrast.
Right.
So even as a grown woman and you're trying to get through to your mom, I think you should seek out someone that can give you that contrast. I'm not talking about a man either. I'm talking about another successful female, somebody that's been through that and has gotten that understanding of what it's about.
Yeah, love comes in many forms. Yeah. Love comes in many forms. Like, one thing I can say is, when I wake up and I ask God to experience love that day, I say, God, bring me love today. It's not necessarily something tall, dark, and handsome. It's my client saying, oh, I love you so much. Hey, here's a tip. Or it's you just calling and saying, hey, I just want to tell you how wonderful you are. Or if I go to a store, someone says, you are so pleasant. So love comes in many forms. It's just not about sexuality.
Right. But we're so
conditioned.
I think people now is just at a point where, to me personally, people just don't care about each other no more.
They don't. Yeah.
And we don't get help for those traumas. And now we have an outlet to put it out to the world.
Ooh,
with social media.
Dangerous. That's so dangerous.
To put it out to the world. And so, but that's their form of therapy. So I can't say anything bad about that. Because we all kind of do what we've been taught. I would say conditioned to do.
Right.
Because we've been conditioned in our life that you're supposed to be in a relationship with all that drama and abuse and this and that ain't right. And then when you get in that relationship, the right kind of relationship, you think something's wrong with it.
Oh,
because
you're so paranoid.
Conditioned that that's the way it's supposed to be.
You're so paranoid. Yes. Super paranoid. You waiting.
Like, something wrong with this motherfucker.
You waiting.
He's too nice. He'd be like, here, I fix your plate. He'd be like, this motherfucker trying to poison me. That's what we do. Because we've been conditioned that, you don't get that in a relationship.
Right.
And even though there was families
Snuggle
that had mothers and fathers in the house.
Right.
That don't mean that was a good family. I was with your dad.
We know Rick.
Leave Rick alone.
Rick James, baby.
But, so, okay, you got two parents, but if they're not sharing the responsibility equally and raising you equally, then they just there, paying bills.
And making sure you don't die.
Right. That the CPS don't come to the crib.
Right.
So, I think it's, women. I remember you asking me, Mama, why I always have to be the one to do everything in a relationship and you don't take responsibility. And my response to you was, God chose you to bring life into this world. Why wouldn't you be responsible?
Oh, and I hate that hard love sometimes.
Right?
Right. And it's crazy because I find myself giving that same advice to other women that say that. But at a point, I took it like like get over it, like just something to like, girl, get over it, because that's what you're supposed to do. But the more I really studied on it and thought about it, it's more about really taking your power back in the situation. So the more I think about it, it's an honor to be able to do that.
Right.
It's an honor to be able to be capable of doing those things.
And it's sad, because what's sad is now we see a pregnant woman, we be just like, where we should be celebrating her.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, we should have something to say to a pregnant woman that will lift her spirits, but we don't, because we've been conditioned. It used to be that way. When I was younger, back in the day, men were tough guys, and their family was first. And when their woman was pregnant, they doted on her. You know, they didn't let her clean up or none of that stuff. But now, you know, oh, she pregnant, so what? And that's so sad.
Yeah.
You're talking about the vehicle that brings life in this world.
Yeah, definitely.
God chose us to do that. And that's why my first answer to your first question was, we are teachers.
All right. Hold that thought. Guys, stay right there. We'll be back after this quick break. Hi guys, welcome back. Thank everyone for joining us today. Like, share, and subscribe. Please go follow the TikTok, the Facebook, the Instagram While We Were Awake podcast. Happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there. Everyone, reach out to your mothers, no matter what you guys been through, no matter how you're feeling against one another. You'll be surprised what small gestures can do. All right. So let's get back into the second half of this. I, of course, have my mother here, and we kicking it. So, Mom, opening up this last segment, I would like to ask you, how do you feel that you failed me growing up?
It makes me feel that I was incapable of being a good mother. It makes me feel guilty. It makes me really sad. But after all of that is said, I would like to think that at some point I started to get it right. Mm-hmm. Because I look at you now, and I would like to believe that I was a part of you coming to this point in your life. Mm-hmm. But regardless of that, those negative feelings never go away. Mm. But those are things that I work through. Mm. You know, they don't hinder me, because we all made our mistake. I didn't know any better.
Right. You did what you knew.
I did what I knew. And the ironic thing of this is, I always said, I'm going to make sure my child never go through any of this I went through.
Right.
I said that a lot before I had you. And I think if your dad had been a different kind of man, I don't think you would have had as much had those kind of traumas from me.
So, okay, great point. So just to level the playing field here, do you mean that statement as in if he didn't play into your traumas, you would have been different? Or do you mean that statement as in if he could have stepped up more, things would have been different? Now keep in mind, the two statements are a little different.
Yeah.
You know,
I think if he had stepped up more, because
within your shortcomings?
Huh?
Within your shortcomings is what you're saying?
If he had stepped up more as a man and a father, then I think that I would have learned something different.
Okay.
Because even though he was in the same house with us, he did absolutely nothing. He was a lazy piece of shit.
Ooh.
And
clink,
his
clink,
love was cigarettes and beer.
Clink, 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 clink.
Not us.
Clink, clink, clink.
And I married him because I got pregnant.
Ooh.
Well, when I first met your dad, I loved him. I thought he was an awesome guy. But when I found out I was already pregnant.
Hey, what you got in that glass over there?
But I'm just saying, I'm sorry. I
Let's come back.
Okay. Woo! I'm sorry. No, I think
I guess what I'm saying is, are you saying that because he wasn't more involved? So right now what I'm talking about, is accountability issue. So
right.
Are you saying that because he didn't step up enough was part of the reason that you felt that I endured a lot of trauma? Because he couldn't step up within your shortcoming?
Right.
So you're taking accountability for your shortcoming. But you're saying that I wouldn't have endured that, because see, I hear women say that a lot too. They say, "Oh well, if your father." No.
I think that if he was a loving man, a moral man,
towards his child,
well, toward our marriage and our family.
No,
because with my shortcomings, he should have been able to pick it up.
Okay, so you're speaking. You're speaking towards family structure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about the demise of the family structure.
Right. Because we were equally responsible for taking care of you, providing security and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that he didn't do. So I always felt like I was on my own. I had no one to guide me. And I made decisions based on where we were at that point in our lives, if we were eating or not, if we had shelter or
survival.
Not. So
survival.
It was more in the survival mode.
Right.
I mean, I never was a stripper or nothing like that. And I ain't saying nothing wrong with that, because I was gorgeous. I probably should have been a stripper. Making that big bucks, but
yes, you were, girl.
But I was, I worked 2 jobs, and thank goodness your grandma was there to take care of you, where I didn't have to leave you with strangers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then not only from my family, but I was in the military. Mm-hmm. I had traumas from the military.
Right.
And so,
a lot of your generation did that. Like that's what you guys did. Like out of high school, it was like go to the military.
Yeah. And so, I always kept myself put together, and I always worked. I got educated, But inside, I was a hot ass mess. And I tried so hard not to show you that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to show you that other part where I was always was put together on the outside. Mm-hmm. That you always see me go to work, you see me go to school and stuff and like that.
You know what's crazy about that? I emulate that to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But because those were the things to be proud of. Those were the things that I was conditioned that meant something to someone else. But I can also remember seeing you cry at night. I can also remember, you just laying across the couch for days. I can also remember, basically in a nutshell, just seeing you trying to find your way. And even as a kid, I recognized that, because one thing about our parents, when we see so much, we grow a little bit faster than we're supposed to. We just don't know how to accurately explain the information that we're being given. But we know that something's changing. It's making sense, but we can't really explain how it's making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen you in periods, like long periods of depressions before.
And I didn't know it was depression.
Exactly. Because
when
now,
we was young, there wasn't no such thing.
There wasn't no such thing as depression. It was, you get your ass up, you lazy, you shrug it off, you get rid of it, and you better not talk to nobody about it.
Right.
You better not. You better not. You better not embarrass this damn family.
Right.
Looking like you crazy.
Tell people all our goddamn business.
All our goddamn business.
Yeah.
But and it's so sad, because just simple communication could have went a long way within families then.
Mm-hmm.
It could have fixed a lot of things then for who we are today.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's cool to talk about depression and mental illness, and it's more acceptable. It's cool. But even still, I feel that a lot of people aren't honest about those periods in their life, and the reason why I say that is because, like I just said, I emulate those things growing and getting older. I emulated that best part about you that I saw. But I also emulate the worst part about you that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
When I wanted to...
I always fought to try not to show you those things.
Right, but you really can't hide it. I was the only kid, so, I mean... you really couldn't hide it.
But still within me as your mom...
But the thing is, you cannot... Okay, so, mothers, you cannot believe for 1 minute that your child does not see you crying. You cannot believe for 1 minute that your child does not see you in a low energy state. You cannot believe for 1 minute that energetically they know that something is wrong.
And they cannot hide abuse from their children.
You cannot hide it. You cannot hide any bad state from your kids. They're your little besties. They're there with you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my whole point of saying that was, I emulated the worst parts of you, was to say that times that I could have reached out for help, I didn't. Times that I, could have chose a different path, I didn't. I just chose to work and stay strong and go make some money and, be successful. But really, how successful are you if you cannot sustain that energy? If you cannot,
Yeah.
You see what I'm trying to say?
I understand.
Like, you have to be able to sustain the front that you're putting up to everyone else.
Mm. Well, I think that's the wrong language to say the front, because that's kind of negative. Because when you're in that situation, you don't put up a front. You mask what's going on with you. Because you really don't
tomato.
You really don't have
tomato
a choice.
woman. Tomato woman.
Well, I choose to use a
mask.
Better word to subscribe it.
Okay, mask. Mask. You're so bougie. She don't want to say front. She want to say mask.
You always call me that, but I am far from being bougie.
Mask. We're gonna mask it. Versus you fronting. But I digress. Keep going, girl. Okay. We go with your word.
Okay. We agree to disagree.
Yes, ma'am. Always. But yeah, so I emulated the best and the worst parts of you. And I think I can't really speak so much for father-son dynamics because I'm not a boy and you're not my father. So this is really for us women and our mother-daughter relationship dynamic. Because a lot of it is just so... it's you know what? I'm looking for a harder word than that. It's just sad. It's sad. People don't realize how much they hold funerals every day within their experiences. They hold funerals every day. And
you have to explain that because people don't understand.
In your life experience, you're constantly creating or choosing to mourn a situation or choosing to mourn things that you can correct. And even if you cannot get satisfaction, you can at least extend the olive branch. You can at least show your forgiveness and your sense of acceptance.
Right.
Because even when, I know a lot of people don't know this, but we went years without talking.
Mm.
And
I cried every night when I went to bed for them 2.5 years.
And when I came back, because I came back to you. And when I came back, our whole dynamic changed. It went from being mother-daughter to best friend. I still respect you as such, but it's like our whole way of interacting became a little more intimate beyond the respect factor of mother.
Right.
Do that make sense?
Yeah, and we're blessed because we were able to do that. A lot of mothers and daughters,
right?
If they don't speak for a couple of years, nobody wants to give in, to make that first move or none of that,
right? And I had the epiphany that you only did what you knew.
Thank you.
And it literally hit me one day, and it was like, she only did what she knew. So how can you keep holding on to that? It just takes so much time away from us.
Yeah.
And if you cannot connect to where you come from in some kind of way, shape, form, you will always miss something.
Yeah.
Something. And seeing a lot of the traumas and, because I can remember you telling me certain stories, growing up. And that was hard for me to hear. It was hard for me to hear. And I became angry for a lot of years. Not only for you, but for myself. Mm-hmm. Because once you start really realizing that, a lot of religious people talk about generational curses. But the thing is, it's not a generational curse. It's just patterns that's being...
Right. And conditioning.
It's a transaction.
Right. And conditioning.
Because most people who are monsters have been preyed on by a monster themselves. Mm-hmm. But they can't dig into that to be able to move past that. And I believe that vulnerability is a superpower also.
And it takes a lot of courage to make a change, to accept your shortfalls, to take accountability. It takes a lot of courage. And most of us don't have the courage.
So let me ask you this, because it's so much conversation about taking accountability these days, right? Mm-hmm. And you will hear people tell their stories, and you will hear people tell them well, take your accountability for what happened, for what you did, right? Mm-hmm. How can a person take accountability for something that they didn't volunteer to be a part of?
It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. The consequence, the end result was still the end result.
Right, because a lot of people now talk to... First of all, it takes a victim to make a victim. So, but a lot of people talk to survivors of situations as if they just need to take accountability for something that they had to do with what happened.
Well, and accountability don't always mean something negative, right? It doesn't. So you take accountability, you shouldn't have went down that road.
Right. But if you say...
You take accountability that, I let him use my car, in good faith. I didn't know he was going to go do that.
Right. It happened. That's the accountability, that it happened.
So it doesn't matter if you chose or not. If you end in that situation, on some level, you did choose to be there.
Yeah, you got me there. Yeah.
On some level, whether it's a high level, low level, on some level, you made a decision to do something, whether it was a little thing or a big thing, to be a part of it.
Right. Right.
So I think the people that says that to victims, I think they put their traumas on people. Because they don't even ask the right question.
Right.
They don't have the right things in their heart. They don't have the right intelligence. Because a person can talk to me and
empathy.
Be that victim,
empathy.
And I'm gonna say, depending on what it is, I'm going to ask the question for them to look at themselves, which I will hope that somebody would do the same for me. Because when we caught up in our traumas, we don't think properly.
No, we don't.
We don't feel good physically.
Right.
We hate ourselves.
Yeah.
We hate everybody.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So I think when people spout all that negative stuff, that's their traumas.
Yeah.
Because that's where they are responding from.
Right, a trauma base.
Because if they didn't have trauma, they could respond with intelligence and understanding, and with appreciation in their hearts that they going to learn something.
Right.
That they didn't know. Learn something new, because that was kind of oxymoron. Learn something new that can catapult them forward. Teach them something different. Even if it's a word.
Right.
You know?
I think that the doorway to a lot of that is empathy.
Yes.
And a lot of...
And that, people lack that so much.
Yeah, they lack
days.
empathy. And so let me ask you this. Why do you feel that empathy is seen as a weakness now?
I don't think it's... I just think people don't know what it is. They don't understand it.
Mm.
Who use the word empathy every day in sentences on the radio, in a song?
Maybe we need to start that. So we're going to start the empathy challenge. We need everybody to start using the word empathy in a sentence every day.
So how could you expect that when that's not a word people even use, even though it makes us who we are at our core?
Right.
That make us, God loving, understanding, and faithful people at our core is our empathy.
Exactly.
And that is sad that people don't even hear that word or know what it means.
Right. Right.
So, I see videos and stuff on it, and I really enjoy them. Mm-hmm. But they don't get as many views as the crazy cat.
Right.
The cat in the tree.
Right.
So that tells me that I think if people really stopped and find out what it was, they'll find out that because they lack that, that's why their life is where it is. I don't care how rich you are, how poor you are. It doesn't matter your money and all that. If you're not happy, you're not happy.
You're not happy. Right.
And traumas don't just come with physical and mental abuse like that. Trauma comes with a car accident.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
It comes with going over to your woman's house and you find out she can't freaking cook.
Very traumatic. What is wrong with this food?
It could be your mom calling you and saying, "Hey, give me some money. You sorry piece of crap."
Very traumatic. I ain't got it.
So and so I know we've been talking about trauma today, but as we've been talking about it, I think we should use the word empathy more than trauma. Right?
Yep. I like it. I
think the generations after the baby boomers, we were taught to, you work hard and it'll come. Mm-hmm. But the younger generations, they want it now. And my mom and daddy got it, it's mine. I ain't got to work, it's mine. Oh, you're going to do this. Or you're going to buy me them $200 shoes, gym shoes.
It's very entitled. It's a high sense of entitlement. It's very entitled,
and it's a lack of respect. And that ain't the kid's fault. That's that teacher. That first teacher to society.
But I also feel like it's a balance within that. Because of the fact that the generation before had it so hard and so tough, I think that they lean too much into... they're not going to experience that from me.
Well, regardless,
so it's no balance.
Connie, you don't disrespect your parents.
We know that. We're not talking about that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
so I understand those changes, but some things are just constant throughout life.
Right.
They're just constant. Right. They don't change. Now, if you got what you think is a bad parent, then you ain't got to tear them down. My mom, I was the only one out of 7 kids that called her mama. Everybody else called her by her name. I was scared shitless to call her by her name. Mm-hmm. So, and even though it was out of fear, I still respected her.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it takes fear.
Right. So, if it's any last message that you could give to the audience, to mothers in your generation, really quick, what would it be?
I would say let go of the past. What is done is done. And keep learning. Find you someone that can mentor you and move you forward in your life.
Mm-hmm.
My motto has always been, you change yourself and your world change around you.
Woo! Thank you, Mother.
You for having me, my daughter.
I thank you for being here. Everybody, please. Oh, of course, we got to put in the quick plug. Do not forget to go buy the book While We Were Awake by yours truly. It is available on Apple Books, Amazon Kindle, and now Google Play and Google Books. 66 countries. Thank you guys for joining me. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep up. Bruh. Okay, we're back. Keep up with the TikTok, Facebook, Instagram While We Were Awake podcast. Feel free to comment and contact me if you want to be a part of the show, While We Were Awake podcast at gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. It's all love and I appreciate you. Thank you, Mom. And happy Mother's Day to everybody.